So the first thing is that the game organizer, in this case, presumably in a game master GM situation, makes a couple of decisions. So the first thing is for them to say, of all the ways I'm going to be able to start this, which one do I want? So the first thing to answer my own question is a person who plans to be the game master will choose a particular angle of attack. If there's an infinity of angles of attack, we got to narrow them down a little bit so that we at least know what sectors this person would prefer. Um, if there's, you just named a few different things, what
Mhm.
I'm going to summarize is first things first. The presumable game master, presumptive game master, is going to say, I have to, we have to, I or we have to come up with our starting tenets, our, what kind, but what are those? What are the things they could either get it out of, like you say, a module that they lift off the shelf, they could make it up brainstorming. He or she could sit down and, write it up, or whatever it is they want to do. What
Yeah,
then?
again, think
Right.
fudge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, recall,
Right.
like literally recall the fudge manual in
You
your
have it
head.
right there
That's,
going. Mm-hmm.
you know,
Right. But
literally that generic.
right. That's fine. But the idea is that play, a given instance of play, can't be generic. The game may offer that wide range, and a given instance isn't. So, Todd, I understand there's lots and lots of ways to do it. For purposes of this conversation, can you just bloody pick one and walk me through doing it a little bit? Not in every possible detail, just what would I want a GM. I want to GM this thing, and you're going to kind of be my co-brain, and you're going to say, aha, here's a way. And yes, it's not every last possible way. It's not. It's a way. And am I recommending that you write the book like this? No, I am not. I'm just talking about for our conversation. So
Okay.
just
Then I have something I can upload.
tell
Hang on
me
just a
tell me
second.
what to do.
And be, so I'm digging through files, so if you want to scat for a minute, please feel free. I'll listen.
Okay. Well, the idea is that I don't need to be convinced that you've already thought about this or that you have materials that are useful for it. I'm willing to take that all as given because I'd much prefer the articulation between us. I much prefer you giving me an instruction that would work. And since we're co-brains, I'm going to take it as a given that, oh, that's wonderful. I want to do that. So whether it is, I mean, what would be such a thing? And yes, I know I could come up with them myself. As co-brains, pick one. Just to start playing using core, pick an inspirational start, an organizational or inspirational start to how to do it out of the hundreds of possible examples or options.
Are you saying maybe use an example in the pedagogy while I'm running
No, I'm
through
talking
there?
about a
Like literally,
conversation. I think you kind of have this
I'm very
this
focused on the
item
book.
next to you that you're trying to work on and design as we talk. Let's just take it straight to this conversation and just stay right here with us talking about it, with you leading me through an initial step of playing this time. And again, as co-brains, you don't have to convince me. I just need to know what to do. And what would be
Okay.
one of the many possible ways?
All right. And I'm sorry, it's my computer is slow and I'm trying to find a
Mm-hmm.
particular thing that I thought I'd isolated, but I haven't. So I'm quickly trying to create a one-page PDF for you. I've got a thing.
Oh, you see. Okay. Okay. Uh, I'll look at that later. What I assure you that I can come up with plenty of different ways to start that I'm pretty sure would be, simpatico with your design. What I'm trying to do is to get
I'm
you into the state of actually articulating it in a casual, non textual way.
In order
Which
to
is maybe,
run a set, let me. Here you go. I'm going to assume that you've just said, Todd, I want to run a core game tonight. What do I need to do? Okay, and the answer is, A, you need to read the micros so you understand how the mechanics work, and then
let's say I'm pretty good
B,
with
you
that.
need to. Okay, and you need to bring what you understand about narrativist roleplay to the table, because there's a whole bunch of stuff in there that you're probably not going to want to read, but I want you to apply it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, nuts and bolts, you're going to need to create some NPCs, very low prep, very loose statted. This is less than fudge, but more than the pool. So
Okay,
they only have stat. Okay. So a character will look like 3 or 4 lines, and only 1 or 2 numbers.
what I'm hearing you
You'll
say
create
is
a
make
couple.
NPCs as the first step.
No. The
Right?
first step
Because it can't
is
be.
the first step is make a plot field.
Right.
But what a plot field is a collection of potentially related objects, and what an object is a character, location, or item of potential significance.
Right. This is what I call
So,
situation. Your plot
so the
field
first,
is the same as my situation. Go on. Uh-huh.
okay, so the first step, if you want to run tonight, like based on a TV show that you saw yesterday, and it's fresh in your mind, what you're going to do is you're going to convert the locations into location objects, the characters into character objects, and the items into item objects.
Beautiful.
All the characters have.
Now let's
All right.
stop
All the
just
characters
for a second.
have.
Stop
You have to
just a
make sure that all the characters have motivations. That's the final setup, because you're now ready to play. If you've done that and the characters have motivations, you're ready to play.
Excellent. Let's back up, because just as as we mentioned earlier, the part that you do automatically is probably the part that you don't say.
Okay, probably.
In order to have a plot field, I myself have to be excited about a particular body of content. Now, let's say that I don't want to just emulate that TV show, as if I were just making another episode for them to watch. No, I like that TV show, and I'm going to say we're going to do something like that, maybe even really close to that, because we can be good at this too. We could be, or at the very least, be fun with this too. So we're going to do that. But I have to say, whoa, hold on. Let's say incidentally, Vikings Valhalla just came out on Netflix here. And I am like, chewing on my pen, right, to get into episode 2. So I'll take that, right? I'll say, God, they spun off Vikings into Vikings Valhalla. I can do a spinoff. We can do a spinoff too. We go to the other direction. Let's go back to Constantinople or whatever, right? So I get going on this, but the point is that I'm inspired. I'm excited, and there's something that I either articulated or unarticulated feel is pregnant with as yet unknown uncertainties and resolutions, right? There's people throw around a lot of words. People talk about resonance, or thematic potential.
Those are all
whatever.
Descriptive words. I need to back up to the most abstract level, so I use the word gestalt.
Perfectly
because
good,
you're
right?
trying to convey.
And
right?
you're excited.
It may be.
Well, I'm not talking about conveying to the players.
I'm trying to
though.
be. No. I'm talking when right? I'm talking to the GM. I have to bear in mind that you may be attracted to something in a mechanical sense, or in a narrative sense, or in a thematic sense, or in some really vague abstract sense that you can't quite put together. But it does involve a situation with some kind of uncertainty in it, and a particular mood. Right. So
exactly.
So the word gestalt is all I can say.
Right, but I'm not talking about the precise text right now. I'm saying that we're agreeing, I think, that the
Yeah,
first thing I
we are.
do is I say, in some sort of cast my mind out upon the waters, and I come up with, or perhaps I am confronted unavoidably with this thing that I could well love to see in play.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it's just a picture. Sometimes it's
Uh-huh.
just, maybe it's an elaborate, enormous body of, published or, available lore. Maybe it's not, but it's something that I now am feeling inspired by. So
Right,
with that,
right.
then and only then can I create a plot field, which otherwise would be a random assortment of genre tropes.
Okay, but and
Okay.
you're right,
Mm-hmm.
but also there's nothing preventing you from randomly rolling or just grabbing a bunch of pre-existing
If,
characters,
right,
locations, and
if upon looking at that, they bounce into that gestalt feeling of, oh, good.
right,
I look at it and go, oh, good.
right,
Then I'm off
right.
and running. That oh, good could come because of a bizarre juxtaposition or because two things fit perfectly or both.
Yeah,
But it,
yeah,
it can happen, right?
and yeah, and you're absolutely right. I'm simply interjecting to say that you could get to that gestalt by already being
Mm-hmm.
there, or you could do something to put yourself there.
Right. It is, and so therefore, having come up with the plot field, which is an excellent term, unplayed situation, right? Or as yet unplayed situation. Some people we could
Yeah,
just
or
say,
literally,
right? But
if
the
you use a
important point
garden
is that it's
metaphor, the
not plot print.
field, like
Right.
literally a field, like a
Mm-hmm.
garden from which a
Right.
plot will grow.
All of this is fantastic. We both agree, I think, however, that what we haven't done is make a, like one of those kid car amusement park things where you get in the little car and then you go like this with the steering wheel and the car just goes low along the rail where it's supposed to go. So we're
Which
not doing that,
you just,
right?
in an amazing feat of synchronicity, you, for like the third time now, you've just touched on a metaphor that I literally use in my writing.
That's beautiful. I appreciate that. So if we are agreed that a plot field doesn't look like that, we both nod, right? We didn't have that problem. Nobody wanted it. No one has to be convinced out of it. We're good. And now we are going to do this. Then, and as you say, creating the objects, particularly motivated NPCs, are pieces of this. So I'm loaded for bear with what is, compared to some preparation processes, not very much text, but with a lot of potential energy. And this becomes an interesting question. And I know that it can be done different ways, but for this particular time, considering that I am constrained to use Vikings Valhalla because it is the last TV episode that I just watched.
Mhm.
Therefore, I look at it and I go, got my field. I then tell, I need to present to the players some kind of information about this plot field. I need to tell them something. What do
Right.
I do next?
And again, the answer depends on the approach that you want to take, because you may have a specific episode and even storyline in mind,
Mm-hmm.
in which case it'll be very easy for you, although a little railroady for your players, to simply do with the PCs the same thing you did with the
Right.
NPCs and hand them out.
Surprisingly enough, that turns out to be a very functional thing. I am of the viewpoint that it's ownership once play begins that matters, not who made it up. I've seen people
And
gain
I'll not only
remarkable
agree with
power
you,
and
but I'll
presence in
point
play.
out that
Mm-hmm.
Core uses another of my coined terms is progressive character generation.
Sure.
One of my inspirations is Roll for Shoes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, which you've probably seen, right? So, so the idea that you can start off with a very vague sketch of a character and buy skills as we go, and oh, I didn't know that before about you, and
Well, now you do.
Yeah,
Right.
he was. Yeah.
Yes, that's fine. I get that. Because it doesn't matter whether it's an attenuated process, and it doesn't matter, for example, if I hand them out to you, it doesn't matter if everybody makes them up
Right.
just before fairly completely.
No, in fact, I'll
Each,
go one further because
Mhm.
I'm actually trying to emulate popular media. And if you look at television series, it happens all the time.
Mhm. Oh yeah,
Season
yeah.
3, you
No,
discovered that,
believe
oh,
me,
he
I
was
know.
in the army. I never knew. Right.
Right. You're
So
talking. You're
it's
talking
actually
to a comics reader. I know all about this.
right.
Right. I've
All
built it
right.
into Champions now. Yeah.
So not only do I think it's smart and advantageous and elegant to allow progressive character generation and to begin
Right.
vague to allow ownership, but I actually consider it a feather in the cap because it's successfully emulating the genre.
So now that we've I've got, I think, a very straight answer from you. So I'm going to say my first job is to feel a well of some kind of inspiration, and either through generating the plot field or as a final step making the plot field, doesn't really matter. There's kind of a, piecemeal personalized version of it in each case. Then I say to the players, but remember, this is one way. I don't save all the other options for some other
Mhm,
time. One way I can
mhm,
do this is to say, here's some things about the plot field, or I come up with some sort of information about what we're doing in terms of content. I have to. I have to say something about sharing this inspiration such that they latch onto it themselves. I could do it in lots of different ways. Let's say this particular time, what I do is I say, make up characters, from scratch, but to a very limited extent because they're going to change,
mhm.
yourselves. Just do it yourself. I know I could have passed some things out. I don't care. This particular time, I say, do it yourself, and um,
Yeah, it's a
recognize that they're
Viking
right.
world. Be of a
Hmm.
yeah.
And so
You
they
just tell them
do.
what the
Hmm.
setting is.
That's an important thing. What is that thing that is said? Remember, I'm doing the thing like I said a minute ago about making a peanut butter sandwich. I didn't follow up with that analogy, but again, a person might say something like, "Okay, what's the next step?" And you say, "Well, good. Put the peanut, put the now put the two pieces of bread together." And they're like, "Wait, I have the peanut butter and jelly sitting out there in the jars. Don't I do anything with them?" And you think to yourself, "What an idiot! Didn't they know they were supposed to put them on the bread before they put the two pieces together?" There's We're in the same state right now. There is something to do once I have done textually and conceptually a few things, and they are now to do conceptually or textually a few things. Even if it is just to accept the piece of paper I give them and say, "Oh, so this is my starting guy," they have to know something for what's on that piece of paper to do any clicking. I have to have said something.
That's
So,
true.
what's that step? What do you do at that point? And I believe this tone and mood and thing is sort of involved in that.
Uh, Good, because that's where I really want this conversation to go. I agree with everything you've said so far, and I like the fact that you're forcing me to elucidate it. But where I really want to end up has more to do with I love coining terms, right? Because I need to be precise about the way I mean something. So
Mm-hmm.
I need to invent jargon or use an existing word in a weird way, which gets into trouble.
No,
So,
I'm actually fairly. I
um,
enjoy that myself. So you go right ahead.
okay, so I have done some theory where I break down the idea of narrativism into 4 or 5 subdisciplines or interwoven fields of effect, any one of which may be your particular preference.
Mm-hmm.
And one that I feel gets very little attention, but is actually my core preference, I've decided to name experientialist narrativism.
Okay, keep going.
Now, I take the word experientialist from the field of psychotherapy and hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say experientialist, and I don't know if I need to fill you in on anything here, but uh, When I say experientialist, I want you to think of Ericksonian hypnosis.
Yes, this I do know.
Converse,
Go on.
converse,
Mm-hmm.
conversational hypnosis, and NLP.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the angle that gets the least attention, but I feel is the most important. And it has to do with conveying tone as the G. It is, it's very performative. It has to do with immersing the players via performative means, using psychological content, and listening very closely so that you can re-inject the psychic material that comes from your players, whether or not they were aware of it.
Yeah, awareness is really a very minor variable as far as I'm concerned in many of the things you're talking about, because I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
that
so
plenty
this
of
is
GMs do this without being aware of it either. So keep going.
right. So this, cycling back to the earlier part of our conversation, this is that fuzzy part where it becomes really difficult. It's easy to write the rules. You're looking at it. The part that's really hard to express, explain, convey, whatever, is this part here where it's hard to tell what's technique and what's just Todd.
Right.
Right.
Let's stop just for a sec and reassess what we do know about this. We do know that you are when I say you or I in this conversation, it's the same person. Um, we, you see, I hate saying we because that's like a film reviewer writing in that way that I hate so much. Um, okay, I have been inspired, and not only inspired by that thing because I like it, because hell, I could just turn you off and go watch episode 2 right now if that's all I wanted. No, I want to do this with other people. I want to be in a position of creative excitement, or at least creative function. I want to be in a room with specific people. I'm going to invite specific people and not other people. And I'm going to have a sense of desire, right? To be there with them.